Well, Georgia has been in the news the past couple of weeks as Governor Brian Kemp signed a bill into law that aims to reduce voter fraud. Critics have said the law is somehow racist. Instead of strengthening election integrity, they say it actually suppresses the vote. Joining us now to lay out the facts, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. Governor, first of all, I've read the bill. It does not suppress the vote. It makes it easier to vote in Georgia. It just makes it harder to cheat. What have the critics gotten wrong?
Oh, I think, well, thanks for having me on, Governor. I think they've gotten just about everything wrong. But as you and I both know, with that agenda that they have, they could really care less about the truth. I think they wrote the playbook on this plan that they had weeks ago when they reserved the domain name Jim Crow 2.0. And you know, President Biden said the other night that this was Jim Crow on steroids, and I responded in an interview I did yesterday, this is the big lie on steroids. So we're fighting back with the truth. And, you know, I've done over 60 interviews now answering every question that anybody had for me. But none of the other folks that are, saying this is a bad bill are willing to do that, because they have yet to point out one specific in this bill that takes away the opportunities for people to vote. And in fact, as you said, it expands it, but it also makes sure that we have election security. It's going to be easy to vote and hard to cheat.
There was a knee-jerk reaction on the part of some of the CEOs, Delta Airlines, what I now call coca-cola. They immediately just made these decisions, and yet, Governor, they could not point out not one specific area in the law that they had a problem with. They just simply took at face value that what was being said by some very hyper-partisan people was true. Have you had conversations with CEOs of some of these companies that were so, I guess, falsely outraged by the bill?
Yeah, I have not since they came out with their statement. And in fact, the disappointing thing about Delta is they had a statement that was really pretty good after I signed the bill, or maybe it was right before I signed it. Then after they got pressured, they completely changed their position. But Governor, as you know how the legislative process works, this has been going on for months in Georgia. Speaker Ralston created a committee even before the end of the year. Our session started the second Monday in January, so the middle part of January. That went on for 2.5 months, and all this work was done. And the thing that's so bad really for me about Delta and Coca-Cola is their government affairs folks were in the Capitol every day. And we were talking to them, a lot of the other business community. We were talking to local elections officials, the legislators. I mean, everybody was having their input, and they were fine when the final bill passed. And they were fine when I signed it. It was only after the cancel culture and the pressure came from Stacey Abrams and, quite honestly, the White House, that they changed course, which is so disappointing, especially in regards to what's truly in this bill.
One day after President Biden, in an interview with ESPN, said the Major League Baseball All-Star game ought to be moved out of Atlanta, the commissioner actually moved the game, or at first just took it away from Atlanta, then later moved it to Denver. Somebody pointed out that he moved it from one of the blackest cities in America to one of the whitest cities in America, all in the name of racial equality. But let's talk about the economic impact and who that's going to hurt in Georgia. How much money will Atlanta and or Georgia lose because of the ball game being moved? And who are those people who get the gut punch from this really rash decision?
Governor, it's $100 million economic impact, or somewhere give or take around there, maybe a little more than that. And it's the guy that I saw on the news that owns a restaurant up there that was really banking on the All-Star game being there, having a, Super Bowl All-Star game, college football playoff game type weekend. That quite honestly, coming out of a global pandemic, these folks need. They've been suffering up there. There weren't any fans in the stands last year during the season. They've weathered through because of our measured approach. We're really looking to come out of this, and they're taking an economic gut punch, but they're also just, mentally, it's like this doesn't even seem rational that we're politicizing the great American pastime.
There were some issues in the Georgia election of 2020. The legislation that you guys worked on was to correct that so there would be greater levels of transparency, accuracy. Do you feel like this bill addressed the concerns that had surfaced as a result of the 2020 elections?
Yeah, absolutely, I do. I mean, we're replacing an arbitrary signature match process because we had a 351% increase in absentee ballots by mail with the voter ID requirement. By the way, Governor, I thought it was very ironic that Joe Biden did the intro to the NCAA championship game the other night, where every one of those games was played in Indiana, which is the birthplace of photo ID. But this also secures ballot drop boxes. It makes sure that elections officials continuously count till every vote's tabulated, not starting and stopping or stopping in the middle of in the middle of the night, which really makes voters lose confidence in the process. And then, as we mentioned earlier, it expands early voting opportunities, especially on the weekends. And what's so ironic about this is every single Democrat has voted against expanding early voting on the weekends, and they voted against the voter ID requirement that 75% of Georgians support, and we've had in place since the mid-2000s here in Georgia.
Well, Governor, I just want you to know, I think there are a lot of people across the country who admire you for standing up and fighting back. It's what folks need to do when there's something on the line like voter integrity. So we want to say thank you for being with us and letting the people of the country understand what's really going on. We appreciate your time. And our viewers can follow at Brian Kemp GA on Twitter. You want to keep up with the governor in real time? That's how you can do it.